All right, we'll get things started. Rob, with a third step prayer, please.
Which is found on page 63 of your big book. God, I offer myself to thee, to build with me and do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help of thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. May I do thy will always.
Excellent. All right, let's see here. We are almost on page 63, as a matter of fact, but we're going to start back on page 55, kind of near about a fourth of the way down.
Leo, I would like to go back to the part where it actually,
Yeah,
if you don't mind,
no.
because that is such a an important part of this whole thing. To me, it answered so many questions that I had. Where do I find God? You know, what do I do? How do I find him? All these things that I ask myself. So that's why I'd like to go back to there, if you don't mind.
Oh, yeah, that's where I was actually going to start. So you
Oh,
and I are on the same page. Same pun intended.
I'm going to say two great minds think alike, but who knows?
Two feeble minds.
Page 55, everybody. Actually, we were fooling ourselves. For deep down in every man, woman, and child is the fundamental idea of God. It may be obscured by calamity, by pomp, by worship of other things, but in some form or other it is there. For faith in a power greater than ourselves and miraculous demonstrations of that power in human lives are facts as old as man himself.
Absolutely. And man, that whole paragraph is basically highlighted or underlined. And the idea is actually a very strong one. It is when everybody kind of sits down and they uh, get introspective, really kind of dig deep. I think that everybody can find that there is some form of higher power within them, and it is something that you have to tap into. It is something that you have to really kind of get to know, to build a relationship with, and over time, I think it gets stronger and stronger, and I think that's how we get to the point of utilizing it to becoming sober and staying sober, and then expanding that along the rest of our lives with other areas. So I think it's a great thought here. And like I said, if somebody sits down and they're truly honest and introspective, I think they can find this inner strength that we're talking about. Rob?
Geez, I hope so, Leo, for their sake. I always thought I had to look outside of myself, to look to the universe, to look up into the sky to find out where God was, and then I thought, well, am I fooling myself? But you know what? What I've learned is that I got to stop looking for God with this. He's my heart, and that's made a huge difference. But when I read this, this line for the first time in the big book, and it made so much sense to me that God is inside us all. You know, we can search, all over the place, but it's inside. You know, the beautiful line, beautifully, how Bill Wilson put it all together. We're on page 55, Larissa. Great to have you here. We finally saw that faith in some kind of God was a part of our makeup, just as much as the feeling we have for a friend. Sometimes we had to search fearlessly, but he was there. He was as much a fact as we were. We found the great reality deep down within us. In the last analysis, it was only there that he may be found. It was so with us.
Yeah, and I think that just is a continuation as to what we were just talking about, as far as that deep introspective kind of sitting down and really searching. It is making a strong assumption here with regard to the fact that it is there. And I think that the reason why is because when everybody sits down and actually does this search, that they do in fact find something that they have been with all of their lives. And it is true, just like something is part of it. Have the feeling we have for a friend, the this feeling that you have is that you tap into, and um, and it's there. And again, I think that the reason why they're being so strong with this is being kind of this assumptive kind of approach to this is that they everybody that they have worked with and talked to that has been successful has been able to find this inner strength. Rob?
Yeah, well, when you read, we're on page 55, Karen. When they talk about we, they're Bill's talking about the first 100. That's what they finally saw that faith in some kind of God was a part of our makeup, just as much as the feeling we have for a friend. We had to search fearlessly, but He, capital H, God, was there. Okay, and so remember that when they mention we, he's talking about the first 100. And what we want to do is we want to be part of the collective. We want to go through these 12 steps, get our spiritual experience, and become part of the collective of we. So we can take other people through this process and have them find what we have. We can only clear the ground a bit. If our testimony helps sweep away prejudice, enables you to think honestly, encourage you to search diligently within yourself, if you wish, you can join us on the broad highway. With this attitude, you cannot fail. The consciousness of your belief is sure to come to you.
Yeah, and I think that this the important word here is attitude, and that is having a proper attitude towards looking for this and searching. And I think that you can look at the sweep away prejudice. That's kind of a tribute to step one, and then thinking honestly is also a step two, and then searching diligently within yourself is step three. And I just say that because it really does kind of take those three steps in order to get to that point where you are sitting down, introspective, and digging really deep and finding that feeling that you have, um, such as for a friend, and then being able to get on the broad highway, which I would also say is a spiritual awakening. Um, and I think that this is, again, my one of the most important words here is the proper attitude, and that is attitude. Rob?
Yep. In this book, you will read the experience of a man who thought he was an atheist. His story is so interesting that some of it should be told now. His change of heart was dramatic, convincing, and moving. Our friend was a minister's son. He attended church school where he became rebellious at what he thought an overdose of religious education. For years thereafter, he was dogged by trouble and frustration. Business failure, insanity, fatal illness, suicide. These calamities in his immediate family embittered and depressed him. Post-war disillusionment, ever more serious alcoholism, impending mental and physical collapse brought him to the point of self-destruction.
Yeah, and we are talking about Fitz Mayo. It's he's the number three AA member as for in New York. And he got sober in November of 1935. His story is on page 208. It's he's figured prominently throughout this part as well as with his story on page 208. So, Rob?
Yeah, Fitzmayo is, as Leo said, number three in New York. Uh, you know, he was the one that went that Bill sent to and Hank Parker sent to the Library of Congress to find out how many books were named The Way Out, The Way, etc. These things, and they found out that none were called Alcoholics Anonymous. So therefore, what are we going to name the book? Alcoholics Anonymous. And what are you know whole fellowship about? Alcoholics Anonymous, you know. But here is a story that is very common because if you remember in Dr. Bob's father was a minister, was not a minister. He taught Sunday school. Dr. Bob felt he also was dragged to church all the time and didn't want to darken the doors. So Fitzmayo and Dr. Bob had a similar story where, at an early age, they'd had enough of it. They didn't want to do it anymore, an overdose of religious education. You know, Dr. Bob's mom used to make him go to bed at 5 o'clock every night.
Wow.
I know it was a different time, but can you imagine being a young boy and being sent? Dr. Bob used to sneak out of the house.
Hmm.
How his parents never found out, I really don't understand. But hey, you know, according to Dr. Bob, he snuck out of the house all the time. But as I say, you get sent to bed at 5 o'clock every night, you'd sneak out too. You know, but post-war disillusionment. Post-war disillusionment is the period after the First World War brought a mood of disillusionment and pessimism for some. They just didn't see things in a bright light. So we're on page 56, everybody. One night, when confined in a hospital, he was approached by an alcoholic who had known a spiritual experience. Our friend's gorge rose as he bitterly cried out, quote, "If there is a God, he certainly hasn't done anything for me." But later, alone in his room, he asked himself this question: is it possible that all the religious people I've known are wrong? While pondering the answer, he felt as though he lived in hell. Then, like a thunderbolt, a great thought came. It crowded out all else. Who are you to say there is no God?
Yeah, so there's that introspective, this thinking, this sitting down and actually reconciling with regard to your feelings for religion, and as well as this feeling that you are alone, um, and it's that defeated kind of that feeling that you have when you are at your rock bottom. If I'm not mistaken, this is where this was the picture of the guy in the bed and the two people talking to him. Is that okay?
Um, According to that, the picture was supposed to be of Dr. From what I understand, and we'll bring Bill in at the end to straighten this out. But came to believe was the Bill Dotson
Oh,
with
okay.
Dr. Bob and Bill.
I
That's
got
my
you.
understanding.
Okay, okay. Anyway, he's asking the right questions. He's at least open to the idea, and it's that reconciliation that he's going through that I think is important, and a lot of us that have been there and been resistant to this idea, and um, it's as an individual, it's absolutely who are you to say there is no God? And I believe that this is where Fitz finally gets to comes to terms with it for himself. Right?
Yeah, I just put in the chat the picture of the man on the bed. The man on the bed, this oil penny was created by Robert M. for the A Grapevine and was reproduced as the center spread in the December 1955 issue. It shows Bill W. and Dr. Bob reaching out to Bill Dodson, who would later become A number 3.
Yeah,
Okay, that's what I have anyways.
yeah,
And so we're on page 56, everybody. And the great line here is, "Who are you to say there is no God?" People go to church, and for that Sunday while they're in church, they're all high and mighty, and then when they leave church, they take up with the you know somebody's wife or husband, or they cut somebody off in traffic. Dr. Bob was in the Oxford group for a couple of years, and it didn't sober him up. Okay, you know, Carl Jung said, join a religious organization and hopefully, it'll be enough to change it. It happens once in a while. Okay. But unless you take it on and do it 24/7, we have to change our lives. we're selfish and self-centered, the book says. Okay, we have to stop that. I have to worry about kicking, okay, and how she's doing instead of thinking, oh, poor me. I hope Kicken's going to worry about me and Lisa and Karen. I know Karen always worries about me, so thank you for that. But the thing is that I have to start thinking about other people instead of just myself. And unless I start doing that, nothing's going to change. I'm going to keep doing the same things over and over again. And that's the whole thing is that, yeah, you can put yourself into go to church and think that that's enough. But it's like going to an airport and sitting in the departure lounge. You don't have a ticket, you're not going anywhere. And that's what it's all about. We can sit in church, we can go to the fellowship of AA and sit in the rooms and listen to other people talk about their experience, strength, and hope. That doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to get anything out of it. I have to do the 12 steps in order to get what these people got. Am I willing to do that? Well, that's what we agnostics all about. Does your way of life work? You playing God, has it worked? No, it didn't.
No,
Didn't for me. I have to stop, I have to quit playing thinking that I am the be all and end all. I'm just a small part of this world. But I can make a difference in other people's lives if I care about them and do the little things. A smile goes a long way. How are you doing today? And actually mean it and listen. You know, all these things. It's a program of action. Take action. Thank you, Chicken. This man recounts that he tumbled out of bed to his knees. In a few seconds, he was overwhelmed by a conviction of the presence of God. It poured over and through him with the certainty and majesty of a great tide of flood. The barriers he had built through the years were swept away. He stood in the presence of infinite power and love. He had stepped from bridge to shore. For the first time, he lived in conscious companionship with his Creator.
I apologize. Rob, where are you at?
I'm at near the bottom of page 56.
Oh, I don't know why my book uh, changed pages real quick, and I was reading, and I apologize.
Hey, no problem, Leo. It happens to me all the time. I lose where I am. I just
The pages just flipped over, and I didn't realize that they'd flipped over. So yeah, this happened for him. It was kind of his white light experience, and it doesn't happen to everybody, but it was for him. And it, it's kind of that kind of a swoosh feeling. I remember that there was a point where I was working on it, getting more used to it, and then finally there was this kind of feeling of I want to say that I laid down my sword and my shield, and there was this kind of rush of relief that came over me. I can feel it physically come over me when I finally gave up the fight, and this idea, this baffling feature as to why it was that I could do, well in some other areas of my life, and not well with regard to the decisions around alcohol. Um, and finally, taking that last step, as it is here, a step from the bridge to the shore, and um, in being in touch with this higher power that we talk about. So it is about breaking down barriers. It is about being a little bit more vulnerable, and having um, a bit of humility, and you'll find it. That's again that deep down and introspective kind of approach to it, and and it's there. Rob?
Yeah, I would like to go to page 27 what you were just talking about. And This is Carl Jung talking to Roland Hazard. These occurrences to me are phenomena. They appear to be in the nature of huge emotional displacements and rearrangements. And here's where it is. Ideas, emotions, and attitudes, which were once the guiding force of the lives of these men, are suddenly cast to one side, and a completely new set of conceptions and motive begin to dominate them. And the whole idea is that our old way of life didn't work, so we had to come up with a new way of living, caring about other people, worrying about other people, instead of thinking about myself 24/7. You know, when Bill was feeling depressed and resentful, what did he do? He went to town's hospital or the hospital to help other people. Okay. When his business deal was collapsing around him. He had $10 in his pocket. He had a choice. He could go to the bar, find some companionship, and have a few laughs, or he could try to find another alcoholic. Bill chose another alcoholic to find somebody. Okay. Now, in Bill's, you know, a year and a half earlier, would Bill have done that? No. Bill would have gone to the bar, because, you know, oh, I'll forget about this. When things aren't going well in our lives, do we face up to it and deal with it, or do we turn to the bottle? You know, so now the question is, you know what? I've got a higher power in my life. I know that this higher power is going to look after me. Okay, so things are going to work out. They might not work out exactly the way I want them to work out, but they are going to work out. I have faith that this is going to happen. Originally, we started with belief. It could happen. Faith is that it will happen. So now I know that, you know what, things are going to work out. They're not going to work out exactly how I think they're going to work out, but they're going to work out. Why do I know that? Because they always have. I've always been looked after. I always thought it was me taking care of things. Little do I realize that, you know what, when I look back on things, it wasn't me, but I was being looked after. So now these are the things that we have to take into account. It's going to work out. If, and this is the big if, I do what my higher power wants me to do. Okay? I help people out. I make sure that Larissa knows what page we're on and that is doing well. That Karen has got a smile on her face and got up early enough from California time to make it to the meeting. These are simple things. You know, these things that we're being asked to do are simple. They're not grandiose. It's not like we have to have $1 million and I have to send it to Kickin. I wish I could, but I don't. Okay, so it's got to be simple things that I do to help her out. Okay, or that she helps me out with. A smile, a text. A how are you doing? Or even more important, I love you unconditionally. It goes a long way. We have to sweep away our old prejudices, come up with a new conception of what we want our higher power to be. Somebody that's there 24/7 that I can always count on, that has my back, that is going to look after me in those tough situations. Okay? Bad things, when I say bad things are going to happen in life. People are going to get sick, people are going to die. It's called life. It's how we deal with it. Okay? I don't understand a lot of things that happen. I never will understand it. So I leave it up to my higher power. It's above my pay grade. We're at the bottom of page 56, everybody. Thus was our friend's cornerstone fixed in place. No later vicissitude had shaken it. His alcoholic problem was taken away. That very night, years ago, it disappeared, save for a few brief moments of temptation. The thought of drink has never returned. And at such times, a great revulsion has risen up in him. Seemingly, he could not drink, even if he would. God had restored his sanity.
Yeah, and this is a feeling that a lot of people Well, everybody that recovers using this program kind of goes through this process and feels, it's not that you're, 100% perfect from the very beginning, but at this point you have the strength by tapping into your higher power in order to be able to resist. And then later, as it says here, being times of great revulsion, has risen up and he could not drink even if he would. Vicissitude, the difficulties, problems, low points, etc. It's That's what that means, and no later has shaken it. No later has the difficulty shaken it, problems shaken it, or anything like that. Um, and he had his alcohol problem taken away fairly quickly, and um, again, doesn't happen for all of us, but a lot of people experience this kind of reaction when they've been able to sit down and and dig deep and find that inner strength. Rob?
Yeah. Now, with Fitzmail, he had a white light experience just like Bill. Okay. Here, like a thunderbolt, a great thought came. It crowded out all else. Who are you to say there is no God? A white light experience. Bill had his white light experience. A lot of people read the book and go, "Oh, I haven't had a white light experience. There's just something wrong with me." So what happened? They put the spiritual experience in at the back of the book to show that, you know what, not everybody's going to have a white light experience. Sometimes slowly, this is going to come to you. Spiritual awakening, slowly, gradually, but it will come. And I just wanted to throw that in there. What is this but a miracle of healing? Yet its elements are simple. Circumstances made him willing to believe. He humbly offered himself to his Maker. Then he knew. Even so, has God restored us all to our right minds? To this man, a revelation was sudden. Some of us groaned more slowly, but he has come to all who have honestly sought him. When we drew near to him, he disclosed himself to us.
Absolutely. Um, so, what is this miracle of healing? It is that tapping into that higher power and finding that strength that you need in order to fight and win over the drink problem. And he exhibited a lot of humility. He was on his knees when this happened, and um, he had that spiritual experience. And while it was, in some cases, like they refer to here, it happens slowly. In other people, that spiritual awakening is there. Bottom line is we need to find something more powerful than ourselves. Rob?
Even so, God has restored all to our right minds, a promise. And here's one line that it's a promise, and I really like this line. But he has come to all who have honestly sought him, which reminds me that on page 46, it said, "We found that God does not make too hard turns with those who seek him." God's there. Our higher power is there waiting for us, but we have to reach out and ask him to come into our lives. A couple of things about this whole chapter. Convince us that there is a need for a higher power. There is a higher power, and I'm not it. It's the biggest point, you know, power greater than me. Our human power failed. We are the problem. We are not the solution. There is a need for a God, but we have been blocking ourselves off from God. Coincidences are God's way of being on us, are just a few of the notes that I put at the end of that. Anything else you want to throw in, Leo?
It's worth noting that this also is this belief. You need to have that before you have faith. So it's just as a reminder that belief comes first and faith comes right after.
Yep.
So
Well, we
that's an
start with,
important thing.
as I say in the book, we start with willingness, okay, then belief, and then faith. And
And
it takes time. We until we realize that these things are happening in our life, it's a belief that, hey, this could happen. Faith is that it is going to happen, and that's a great point to be at. I just have to sit back, do the things that I'm supposed to do. Keep that spiritual connection. Remember, spiritual connection, a relationship we're trying to get with our higher power. A
Right.
relationship is not waking up in the morning and saying good morning to my wife and never talking until it's bedtime and saying good night. That's not a relationship. Relationship is constant communication. Okay. And through the day, God, thank you. God, I'm feeling anxious. I don't know why I'm feeling this way, but I feel anxious. Can you please take this away so I can enjoy the day? It's constant communication. If things are going well in your life, say thank you. If things aren't going well, ask for relief. Please take this away so that, I don't snap at somebody. I don't get mad. And then when things go to hell in a handbasket for you, okay, somebody cuts you off in traffic and you start screaming and yelling. Oh, God, why did I do that? Why? What did it accomplish? It got my blood pressure up and all these things, but what did it really accomplish? And when we make mistakes, we have step 10. When do we rectify them? Now. Deal with it now. If I say something inappropriate to Kicken, I go Kicken, you know what, that was inappropriate of me. I sincerely apologize. It won't happen again. And hopefully Kicken will say, yeah, that's okay. I understand. We all have our moments, you know, but we deal with it. Right, Leo?
Right, right, right.
So we're off to how it works. Do you want
Yeah,
to make opening remarks on how it works?
sure. This is chapter 5, how it works. We are going to be talking in depth and in detail about the 12 steps, which is outlining this whole program and the process that we go through from start to finish on how we implement this program into our lives and how it benefits us going forward. One of the things that I think that is, this is, I wrote this at the top of the chapter here as we look at this. There's a couple of things. One is that we take a pause and we stop there. Um, that is, I think, is important for everybody. It makes a huge difference in how we approach and react to things. So I wanted to say that first. Remember taking a pause. This chapter, again, it was written in 1938. Um, and we're going to be talking, like I said, in detail about the 12 steps and really the program as it's outlined in the book and how to implement it into our everyday lives. Okay, Rob.
Okay, let's go. How it works, page 58. Rarely have we seen a person fail who's thoroughly followed our path. Those who do not recover are people who cannot or will not completely give themselves to this simple program. Usually men and women who are constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves. They are such unfortunate. They are not at fault. They seem to have been born that way. They are naturally incapable of grasping and developing a manner of living which demands rigorous honesty. Their chances are less than average. There are those, too, who suffer from grave emotional and mental disorder, but many of them do recover if they have the capacity to be honest.
Right, so some key words in here. First of all, thoroughly is one of the words that I would highlight here, and that is that they make reference to that when they say thoroughly followed our path. They're talking about thoroughly uh, exercise the 12 steps in the program in this book. So thoroughly being an important word because we can't just pick and choose. It's not menu driven. And you've got to do it all, and you have to do it all in detail. Second thing I would say in here is this honesty is another word that I would highlight, and that is the truly have to be honest with yourself. I'm not talking about honest with other people, although that's important. We're really talking about you sitting down and being honest with yourself. When I read this chapter, I mean, I'm sorry, with this paragraph, I think it would be very easy for me to say, well, look at that. It's going to be too difficult because I can't do something that thoroughly, or I'm not going to be able to be that honest and that type of thing. But I don't think that giving yourself the benefit of the doubt here and the benefit of actually sitting down quietly, being, like I said, introspective and finding out what's going on. But if you're able, and I think they kind of, it's a qualifier, absolutely. If you're able to be honest, if you're able to do something thoroughly, then I think that you have a better than not chance of success. We've seen thousands upon thousands of people that have been able to do it so far. So getting what they have is it takes some work, but it's not work that is insurmountable. They've made it on purpose. They've made it that way in this book, and I certainly would be the first one to tell you that while certain things were, I think, more difficult than I would want them to be, I still was able to get through them and get past that and get through the 12 steps and really work them thoroughly, and I was able to tap into this inner strength. But that's what I would say, as a really positive spin on this first paragraph, being that it is um, attainable with just a little bit of work. Rob?
Yeah. There's you'll hear some people talk about Bill never wanted to change the word rarely and never. And that is not true. In a letter to Les V dated May 25th, 1961, Bill W. stated, concerning your comment about the use of the word rarely in chapter 5 of the Big Book, my recollection is that we did give this considerable thought at the time of writing. I think the main reason for the use of the word rarely was to avoid anything that would look like a claim of 100% result. Assuming, of course, that an alcoholic is willing enough and sane enough, there can be a perfect score on a person of this sort. But since willingness and sanity are such elusive and fluctuating value, we simply didn't want to be too positive. The medical profession would jump right down our throats, and that's from Pass It On, page 200. Also, from the original manuscript, uh, the line originally went, rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our directions. So directions were taken out and path was put in its place. So interesting. Our stories disclose in a general way what we used to be like, what happened, and what we are like now. If you have decided you want what we have and are willing to go to any length to get it, then you are ready to take certain steps.
Absolutely. If you decide, and this is a personal thing that you have to do, you decide that you want what we have, then you're well on your way. All it takes is a few certain steps, although I would tell you that it's all of the steps, and you have to do it thoroughly. We are talking about a psychic change. This is a major transition that you're going to be going through to accept and apply this program, both to fight the drink problem as well as overlay it throughout and weave it into the rest of your life so that it becomes something that you do all the time. Um, Rob?
Yeah, it talked about at the top of this page about the path that these people have taken. 100 of them have mapped out this path. Okay? It doesn't say there's paths with an S at the end. Okay? It says there's a path. Are we going to stay on that path and follow it to its end? Or are we going to go part way on the path and then create our own? Okay. As I say, it talks here, and Bill's meeting yesterday, he was in this, and he talked about this too, the path. Okay, there's one path that we know about that the first 100 took. We have to follow that path to its completion. Okay, if we stop, okay, which is going to talk about Bach, half measures availed as nothing. We're going to get to that. Okay, we're only going to get that. Half measures availed as nothing. Okay,
Yeah,
so we're not going to get what they got. Okay, so we gotta follow the path to the completion. And some of these we balked. We thought we could find an easier, softer way, but we could not. With all the earnestness at our command, we beg of you to be fearless and thorough from the very start. Some of us have tried to hold on to our old ideas, and the result was nil
no,
until we let go. Absolutely.
absolutely. And that's this is important. It's something that we've got to get. Again, as I said, this is you have to follow all of the steps. You have to thoroughly accept and work the program. It isn't where you can take steps a few steps out of the package and make it your own, and then expect to get out of it what others have put into it and also gotten out of it. Uh, the you lot of holding on to old ideals, ideas, thoughts, beliefs. That especially beliefs have got to be dropped, and you've got to take on new beliefs, and that's hard. In some cases, it's really difficult. And I think that's what I struggled with is that I was just holding on to my old beliefs far too long, and especially when I thought that I could I could beat this. I could win over the drink problem, and just like I made decisions in other parts of my life and was met with some success, I was going to with this, but that was not to be. And it finally, I gave up the easier, softer way, and I embraced the program, and that's when things started happening for me. I would say that that's when I became somewhat fearless in looking at things, and I shed all these old beliefs, and that I rebuilt um, everything that I looked at in the way that I looked at it. Rob?
Yeah, it's some of these we balked. Balked is to stop short. In other words, we didn't complete the program. We thought we could find an easier, softer way. You know what? There was I read something that a boss once said, and the whole idea was, if you have a tough job, find a lazy person to do the job. The reason being is they'll find an easier way to do it. If you find somebody that's a hard worker, they're going to do the job the way they think it should be done. Okay, but the lazy person will find the easy way of doing it, an easier way of doing it anyway. You know, so with some of us have tried to hold on to our old ideas, which takes me back to page 27. Ideas, emotions, okay, and attitudes, which were once the guiding forces of the lives of these men, are suddenly cast to one side in a completely new set of emotions. Now, does everybody know what page that's on? I've mentioned it a few times, page 27. Always keep that in mind if you can, because I think it's a great, we need to change. Old ideas don't work. Okay. If they worked, I would have been fine, but they didn't. You know, my self-knowledge of my alcohol problem didn't save me. Okay. I have to come up with a whole new set of ideas, emotions, and attitudes. Okay. Or else I'm going to keep doing the things that I've always done in the past. Okay. So these have to be swept to one side, new idea. Okay. I want a God in my life that's going to care about me and it's going to look after me. Going to be there 24/7. I've mentioned this, I mentioned this all the time because that's who I want my God to be.
Hmm.
That's who's going to look after me. Where before I thought it was a punishing God that, if I did something wrong, was going to make sure I went to purgatory or hell, okay, that was going to punish me. Well, now I sweep that aside and I come up with this new God, God of my own conception, who I want my God to be. Your conception can be totally different because you're right. You come up with your own God. Or if you know what, if you want my God, by all means, he's there for everybody. Okay? But we have to get rid of our old ideas because they did not work. And that is the big thing. And Karen, you remember this from yesterday. Remember that we deal with alcohol, cunning, baffling, powerful. Without help, it is too much for us. But that one who has all power, that one is God. May you find him.
Now, that's a big one for Rob. It is now is the time that we do that. Now is the only time you can do something, and it is this remember. First thing that I put down here is that remember that we can't remember. Bottom line is that we're dealing with alcohol, and in fact, alcohol is cunning, baffling, and powerful. Uh, it's something that I could not deal with alone and needed to find that my higher power, and I had to dig down and find that inner strength. Um, the the point bearing here is that we are saying that one, we're admitting that alcohol is really tough to beat, and it's impossible on an individual basis when you are an alcoholic, and it's you need that higher power to help you through and also solidify your sobriety, and that you've got to find that higher power and create that relationship. Rob?
Yep. Half measures availed us nothing. We stood at the turning point. We asked if protection and care was complete abandon.
And you have to do this with honesty, willingness, and you've got to be able to surrender or abandon. When they say that with complete abandon is also another good word for here is with complete surrender. Um, Half measures. How many times have we tried to cut corners and then find ourselves in it deeper than we started with? Had we just done it right the first time? And the bottom line is that these half measures that we're talking about just are not going to meet the expectation that we have for you to find your higher power, to do the program, and there's no shortcuts here. You have to do it wholly and thoroughly. When you tapped into that higher power, um, you have to, as they say, leap and the net will appear. It is a complete surrender, and if you do that, you're going to be well well armed with what's necessary in order to beat the drink problem. Rob?
Yeah. A couple of things I wanted to say. Rarely have we seen a person fail who's thoroughly followed our path. Okay. Then it says here, old ideas and the result was nil until we let go of our old ideas. Absolutely. And here, half measures availed us nothing. What is he still trying to get across? We got to do the whole program, not just part of it. Okay. We like to cut corners, as Leo says. We like to do as little as possible if we can get away with it. Okay. But here they're saying, you know what? We got to go through the whole program, the whole program. Okay. Half measures availed us of nothing. You know, we have to do the whole thing. We asked his protection and care was complete abandon. Okay. We're getting to the idea now that, he can and will if he is sought. We have to seek him out and he will take care of us. Without help, it is too much for us. You know why? Because our mind tells us that it's going to be okay. As our friend Bill from New Jersey always says, our brain wants its candy and it'll tell us anything to get it. Okay. The whole idea is the mind will tell us that to take that first drink. That's all that the mind's supposed to do. We know that once we take that first drink, the allergy is going to take over and we can't control the amounts we take. So that's why we have to come up, okay, cast aside these old ideas, bring a new set of ideas and emotions and attitudes. It's so important. Okay. I can't keep doing the things that I was doing if I want change. Okay. Leo, the steps are up next. Why don't we
Yeah.
save that for next week and bring in Mr. Bill? Because Bill did how it works yesterday and it was incredible, as always. Come on in, Bill.
Yeah, hi, this is Bill from New Jersey. Thanks a lot, guys. Good job today. There's really a good part of the book. I like this part. We went over, they talked about Fitz Mayo here, and that's AA number 3 in New York City, and what he did. He was in the town's hospital, and apparently it was Bill Wilson that went in and talked to him, and he had a spiritual awakening. He tumbled out of bed. He said, "Who are you to say there is no God," or whatever. So he had a spiritual experience in the town's hospital, just like Bill Wilson did, and he became AA number 3. And his story is on page 208, Our Southern Friend. And basically, he's one of the pioneers of AA. He helped AA get started. He was living down in Maryland. He was very close to Washington, D.C. And like Rob mentioned, they sent him to Washington, D.C., to the Library of Congress, and he looked up the names of different books to see if there was any names, and he found there was so many names of The Way Out and that kind of thing, and he couldn't find any name for Alcoholics Anonymous. So he told Bill that there was so many books with these other names that they thought they were going to come up with, and he's instrumental in helping them get the name for the book, even though he didn't come up with the name himself, but he's the guy that went and looked it up. So without him, a lot of stuff might not have happened, or it could have happened and it would have happened different. So he's an important figure in the beginning of AA. And pretty basically what he's trying to tell us in this story, we agnostics, he's not trying to tell us who God is. He's just trying to tell us that we have a need for a God. Because we're powerless over alcohol, we need to get a power greater than ourselves in our life. And it's really just that simple. Bill's not interested in who you think God is, what your conception of God is. Anybody can use their own conception, whatever they believe the word God stands for. That's the wonderful thing about AA. I'm allowed to believe something different than you believe. If you go to any other kind of an organization that's a spiritual or religious organization, you have to believe exactly what they believe. Otherwise, you can't be a member of their club or whatever. AA is not like that. You can believe whatever you want to believe, as long as it makes sense to you. Just don't make up something silly like a tree or a doorknob or a light bulb. Because when you're having a rough time, I don't think a light bulb is going to be able to keep me sober. I just need to have something I can rely on. And then we moved on to chapter 5. Chapter 5 is like, if you want to say, the meat and potatoes of this program. And how it works, that's one of the most read things in AA and probably the least paid attention to. And what it tells us right in the first paragraph, it uses the word honest 3 times. So this is telling me if I'm not going to be honest with myself, I'm going to have a hard time getting this. And it tells us in the next paragraph, it tells us we have to be willing to go to any length to get this. And what does that mean? It says it specifically right here, going to any length. Then you are ready to go to any length to get it. Then you are ready to take certain steps. That's what they mean by going to any length. They mean you're ready to take the steps. It doesn't mean you have to go out in a blizzard. It doesn't mean you have to go to a meeting 100 miles away. It just means you have to be ready to do the steps. Once you're ready to do the steps, that's when you're ready to go to any length. And then on the next page, it tells us that half measures availed us nothing. You can't get this program by doing it halfway. It's just not going to work. You know, other things in life you can do halfway. You can go to work for half of the day. You'll still get a half a day's pay. When it comes to sobriety, you can't be halfway sober. You're either sober or you're not. You know, if you play baseball and you hit the ball, you have to run all the way to first base. You can't go halfway. Halfway does nothing. And when it comes to sobriety, halfway is not going to do anything. You can't be halfway sober. You're either sober or you're not. So half measures is not going to work for us. And then it says, we asked his protection and care with complete abandon. And like Leo mentioned, that means complete surrender. In other words, you have to surrender to God. So what Bill did here, he gave us 3 requirements in how it works. The first requirement to get this program is you have to be honest. And he's talking about being honest with yourself. He's not talking about cash register honesty. That can come later. If you're not going to be honest with yourself, you're not going to be able to be honest with other people at all. So first you have to be honest with yourself. And the second requirement, you have to be willing to go to any length. And that means you have to be willing to do the steps. And the third requirement is you have to abandon yourself to God or surrender to God. If you ask for God's help, the only way you can ask for God's help is you have to surrender to the idea that you can't do it yourself and you need to get help from God. So just asking God's help and praying, that's a form of surrender. Bill doesn't use the word surrender anywhere in this book because he knew if he said surrender, that would scare a lot of alcoholics away because we're never going to surrender. We'll never stop fighting. We'll fight to the last drop of everybody's blood. That's just the way our brains work. That's how we are. We have to surrender to God in order to get God's help. If you don't surrender to the idea that you need help from a power greater than yourself, you're not going to be able to ask for it. And if you don't ask for it, you're not going to get it. So Bill gave us 3 requirements in here in order to get this program. So that's pretty much as far as we got. So that's all I got on this. Thanks a lot for letting me share.
Thank you so much, Bill. Appreciate you, sir.
All right, let's do the serenity prayer and then we'll open things up.
Okay. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference.